Hello, thank you for joining me, and welcome to what is the first and possibly only of my podcasts, vlogs, not sure really what you call them. My name is Mandy, which is short for Amanda Jane, and I live in Somerset in the UK with my husband and two sons. My eldest son is 29 and he and his fiancée live about 100 yards that way. My youngest son lives with me. He's 19. He's just finishing college and hoping to go into the army. I'm not from Somerset. If you're good with accents, you've probably twigged that. We're from Croydon. My husband's from Sutton, but I'm from Croydon. And we've lived here in Somerset for 18 years. We've got 4 cats, some of whom may make an appearance at some point. Yeah, so that's us. I thought I'd have a go at a podcast, bloggy type thing, because I'm not very well. I've got an autoimmune disease, which came on very suddenly, attacked my kidneys, and so for the last 18 months, I've either been too poorly to go out or having to shield because of coronavirus. And what's really kept me going is my knitting. I've been knitting for about half a century. Not always. There's been breaks in it when I've been busy with other stuff. But I took it up again really a few years ago, not as intensively as I do now, but I had a project on the go. And then somehow last summer I discovered that there are all these knitting podcasts on YouTube. I think I was looking for a how to cut your own fringe tutorial and came across Craft House Magic, Ellie's Craft House Magic podcast. And she very quickly became one of my favourites because she sews as well, and I also sew. And I love the beaded pearl. I don't know how to edit this, so this might be a bit of a mess. Okay, prepare yourself for chaos. Crazy Sock Lady is another of my favourites. There's loads. I watch them all the time. Bakery Bears, loads of them. So really, until I found all these podcasts, I'd been very much a monogamous knitter. I'd have one project on the go and I'd cart it up and downstairs with me, and just that was it. But then I started getting a bit carried away, and yeah, there are many things cast on now, many. But it's okay because we live on a house on 3 floors, so I've got at least one project bag on every floor. We're in my craft room at the moment, which looks a mess in the camera, but it's not actually as bad as it looks. It's quite neat and tidy. It's recently been decorated. This wall next to me is all yarn. This is all yarn. There's behind me, there's a chest of drawers that's mostly sock yarn. There's some under the desk. It's everywhere. So I had kind of made a pact with myself this year that I was just going to stash knit, because it's expensive, but also because frankly I'm running out of room. Though it did occur to me the other morning, I was laying there awake in the early hours, and it suddenly occurred to me, where am I going to put all these things that I've knit? Because I've certainly got no room for the finished objects, let alone them in balls of wool, so never mind. I will warn you, if you are one of those acrylic is only for charity and toys knitters, a lot of my yarn is acrylic because I have a bit of a, I wouldn't say it's an allergy, but wool yarn irritates me. I'm working on it because all my sock yarns are wool, and I've got some shawl yarns that are also wool. So I'm kind of working on it. But for jumpers and cardigans, it's generally acrylic. So I have many finished objects this year, but I'm not going to get into those because you didn't see them being made, so they're not really going to be of any interest. So I'm going to show you my whips. So this is number one. This is the big one in a bag made by my own fair hands, and this is a top-down sweater. See, sweater, that's what they say, because it's, you know, it's a jumper. I feel a bit pretentious saying sweater. It's a jumper, and it's a V-neck, and the pattern is called Stillness, and it is by, I wrote it down, hang on, Elizabeth Sullivan, and I've not got very far with it yet. And it's meant to be a stripy jumper that you use different yarns to stripe, but I had this yarn that I had made, I had 500 grams of it, and I'd made 200 grams into a scarf, and then looked and thought, no, those colours are too pretty, I don't just want it to be a scarf. So I pulled it down. This was last year, beginning of last year, I think. Might even have been the end of the year before. So now it's becoming a stillness sweater. I saw the pattern on Leslie Hopkins' podcast. She's Knitting or Death. She's excellent. I love her. I really ought to have called this podcast Knitting or Motorcycles, because that's pretty much my main interest. Knitting, motorcycles, cats. Yeah, so this is King Cole Riot DK in Funky is the shade, and I've had it for years. As I say, I've got this massive stash. Some of it has been in there for probably 8-10 years. They may not even make the same stuff anymore. This I think is a bit more recent than that, but I have looked and it seems to be a bit hard to get hold of. But it is a 30% wool and 70% premium acrylic, and it's got, I don't know if you can see, a lovely sort of halo. Where's the camera? There it is. Oh, you have to cover up your face, I remember now. So it's got sort of a fluffiness to it, and I just love the colours, particularly this brighter green and that one, which is, it's coming out quite bright, but it's a burgundy colour. It's lovely. And I'm knitting it on my favourite everything knitting needles, my Pony Bamboo interchangeables. And I've seen, please excuse next door's dog, he's new. They only moved in a week ago, and if he sees or hears any of us, he barks, because bless him, he doesn't know who we are. Yeah, I've seen people be a bit disparaging about these needles, but I love them. I find them very smooth. They don't come undone. The cables are nice. They are a bit twisty. That's the only quibble I have with the cable, is they're a bit twisty. So that's my jumper. Then I have many socks. I've been knitting, as I say, for a long time, and until recently I'd only ever knitted one pair of socks. I made them about 5 years ago on DPNs, and they were okay, but I didn't really understand what the sock construction was that I was doing as I was doing it, and the DPNs drove me nuts. They scrape on my palm. Must be the way I hold them, but the ends scrape across my palm, and I get like hypersensitivity in my hands, and that's it. I'm done for the day. I can't touch anything with any texture, so DPNs are out. And then again on YouTube, I discovered, I tried it before and couldn't get my head around it, knitting on a magic loop. And that was it. I was away. So for Christmas last year, I started in September and everybody got socks for Christmas. And I think in the end, including for myself, I knitted around 30 pairs of socks between September, beginning of September, and Boxing Day. Lots of socks. People who are related to me by blood or marriage got 2 pairs. There were many socks. And now I have to have a pair of socks cast on because I just love them. I think what it is they knit up quickly and you can play with colour. I love colour. And you can, it's not a big investment of time or money. You can mess about with colour and pattern, and anyway. Mostly I knit my own pattern, just make it up as I go along. I know everybody's foot sizes and what have you, so I just knit vanilla socks, or I'll maybe whack on a pattern. But this time I've been adventurous and I'm doing a pattern that I found on Ravelry, but it doesn't seem to have a name. It's got this lovely leaf motif that goes, it should actually go down the sock, but I always knit toe up, so it's going up the sock. But the pattern is by, again I've written it down, Olivia Villarreal, and it's a complete sock pattern, but I'm just using the leafy pattern up the front because I'm knitting toe up and it's designed for top down. And I'm putting on a Fleagle heel because these are for me, and I find that the Fleagle heel fits me the best. The yarn I'm using is Drops Fable, and it's a solid colour. Oh, it's just called 112. They don't have names. So yeah, so that's my yarn. So that's sock number 1. The socks I'm knitting at the moment, I joined a knit along in January. It's the Comforting Socks knit along, and the idea is you knit 1 pair of socks a month. Well, being an overachiever and a little bit sock obsessed at the moment, I did 1 in January, 2 in February, 3 in April, and I may get 4 done in March. I don't know how long I can keep this up though. It's a lot of socks. So again, this one is for me, and this one is loosely based on Crazy Sock Lady Kay Litton's Do-Si-Do pattern. But again, that's a top down, and I'm knitting toe up with a Fleagle heel because I like the Fleagle heel for me. And this is actually, this is some special yarn. First of all, let me tell you, I cast this on. I had a hospital appointment last week and I cast it on because I wanted something to knit in the car. I have to go to Bristol, which is 2 hours away from me. So it's 2 hours there, 2 hours back, and however long you have to wait, which in this case was an hour. So I wanted something to take with me that I didn't need a pattern to look at and what have you. So I cast this on. And it has backfired a little bit. I don't know if you can see. Can't really because of the pattern of the yarn. There is, what do you call it? Some tension issues, gauge issues, because knitting on the motorway isn't too bad. It's fairly smooth. But Bristol City Council, you need to do something about your roads because it's tricky on sock needles. So anyway, this yarn is by a lady called Ange Knits, and this is actually the very first ball of hand-dyed yarn I ever bought, and I bought it at the end of last year, and that's a bit more accurate as to the colour. This was the first one. it was not the last. It was soon joined by a friend, and then she did an advent. Well, she called it an advent, but it was one a month for the whole of 2021. Now, bearing in mind, I just declared that I wasn't going to buy any yarn this year, so I bought that, and then it all came in one go, which it makes sense. I hadn't thought it through, because if it had come one every month, there'd have been 12 lots of postage to pay, wouldn't there? But no, there was just the one lot of postage to pay. But then it means that I have to exercise some self-restraint and only open one a month and not rip my way through all 12 of them. And so far I've been good, but it's only April, so who knows? So yeah, so they're kept in their own special box. They're in a special box that lives under my desk here, and I just get it out and I look at the beautifuls and then I put them away. I'm like Gollum and the Ring, really. But anyway, so I cast that on. Mostly I use my favourite sock needles, which are, these are Addy Fixed. I did this on a 2.5 because it called for less stitches, so I went up a needle size. Normally I do 2.25. The green socks are on 2.25 Addy Fixed needles, but then because I've got little chunky legs and because I have kidney failure, sometimes my ankles get a bit puffy towards the end of the day. I've gone up to a 3mm for the leg. So once I was past the heels, I'm doing 3mm for the leg just to give it a little bit more room. And these are Pony interchangeables, the bamboos again. So that's those. So there will definitely be 2 pairs of socks for April, but I suspect there'll be more because I bought more yarn. I bought quite a lot more yarn actually. I bought more sock yarn because the colours kind of, I had to have them. And then, having cast on my precious ball of Ange Knits yarn, I saw on Instagram, and you can find her on Instagram, she's Ange Knits, ANJKNITS, Ange Knits, and that will take you to her Etsy shop. I saw that she had brought out some spring colours, and I went and I had a look and I was thinking, which one do I like? I can have one because I've cast on one, so there's one missing from my box. I can replace it with another one. So anyway, I bought all 5 and we won't talk any more about that, thank you. If I do this again, I will show them to you because they're on their way. But yeah, that was a bit of a whoops. Moment. Don't tell my husband. Because he actually, this sounds really bad, but he actually recorded me at the beginning of January when I was going, right, my New Year's resolution, I'm not buying any yarn, I'm only knitting from my stash. There's so much wool. And I was going on like it was someone else's fault, which it clearly isn't, because nobody buys the wool but me. It's all got to go. There's no room. It's got to go. Yeah, so he recorded me saying that because he knew. And then I bought the Advent thing, and he just keeps saying 4 days. You managed 4 days. You lasted 4 days. So we just try not to talk about that anymore. And if any yarn appears through the doorstep, fortunately, he's been furloughed for 3 months, but he went back to work Monday. So fortunately, I can maybe sneak some in and away. But if any turns up, I just look him boldly in the eye and say, well, I won it. I didn't win it. I never win anything, but I just tell him I won it. Ah. Okay, so that's one knit along, is the sock knit along. I've joined quite a few knit-alongs this year, and then for one reason or another I've not liked what I'm doing or whatever, dropped out. And I would have beaten myself up about that a little while ago, but then I came across this concept of, are you a process or a product knitter? And I think I'm a process knitter. So if I'm not enjoying it and I'm not going to like what it is when it's finished, what's the point? I frog it and I use it for something else. A bit like my scarf is now going to be a beautiful jumper. So we don't mind. We don't care. It's not wasted time because I've had the enjoyment of knitting it. So it's fine. We don't get wound up about that sort of thing anymore because it's not good for us. So anyway, there's the sock make along, knit along that I'm involved in, and that one I will definitely keep going. And then I saw on Instagram, I've admired this for a couple of years actually, and I didn't understand that it was a crochet along. It's the anniversary virus shawl crochet along. Now I don't crochet very much. I'm very much a knitter and not a crocheter. If I'm crocheting something, I have to look up how to do the stitch, and I only really retain it while I'm making whatever it is that I'm making, and then it's gone. But I fancied this virus shawl. I'd seen so many beautiful ones, and I had a skein. I've got two skeins actually exactly the same, but and I thought I'm going to have a go, and I didn't think I was going to manage it to begin with. It began, and it for me it seemed really complicated, but then suddenly it clicked and I'm away now. It's fine. So here it is. Here is my virus shawl. I'm still working on it. The colour's not coming out terribly well on the camera. I think because it's got a lot of red. It's a bit greener than it looks there. Starts this beautiful pale sort of minty green, which isn't normally my colour, but it's not too bad actually. I'm a bit more a bold colours or black type person. Yeah, so I'm enjoying that. Crafty Cat Knitty Bits, Lisa Pine Notes, I think a lady called Silvery Paws do it every year, and I follow Crafty Cat on Instagram, and I've bought quite a few of her bits and pieces, and she's the one that I saw it and thought I'd join in. So the yarn I'm using is, and like an idiot, I started from the bottom, not the top. It's called Elise Silky Effect Diva Ombre Batik, and it will end up that dark colour. So you can see there's still quite a lot, you compare it to my head, quite a lot of yarn to go. So that's going to be quite a big shawl. I don't normally wear them as shawls, I wear them as scarves, but this one might actually end up being a shawl rather than a scarf. The yarn I got from a lady called Mandy's Knit Picks. She has a website and she's also on Facebook. Oh, and I've just remembered I've got some more yarn coming from her as well. It's alright, it's gone back to work, it'll be fine. Absolutely fine. No one need know. No one's going to watch this. No one's going to know but me. So it's fine. Let's not worry. And my last whip, that's a lie, but I'll get to that in a minute. My last knit along whip is this. And again, bizarrely, it's a very similar colour to what I just showed you. Oh, there's a cat hair on it. But it's pure coincidence because the yarns were bought ages apart. And as I say, it's not a colour I normally wear. But this is, the shawl is, where is it? Sugar Plum Shawl. It's the Sugar Plum Shawl by Nina Phillip. And I'm making this as part of Craft House Magic's Spring Shawl Along 2021. And I thought it would be fitting to use some yarn that I got from Ellie at Craft House Magic. So it was a set of minis, and they were called Fade to Grey, and I don't know how well you can see them. I've wound them all up into a ball. So in the centre there is the turquoise that we started with. And then it goes to a paler sort of creamy that's got turquoise and grey in, then to the grey, and there's another sort of grey turquoise, then a darker turquoise, and then this beautiful chartreusey colour, which is one of my favourite colours. I love turquoise, I love chartreuse, and I love grey, so I had to have this. I didn't know what I was going to do with it because it was 6 20-gram minis, which kind of limits your options a bit. Socks were obviously, because it's 80% merino, 20% nylon, I think. So it's lovely and soft. So socks were always an option, but how to combine the colours, I couldn't make up my mind. And then this shawl along came along, and I thought, well, I'll just find a one skein shawl pattern. There are hundreds of them, and in fact I've knit some before because I've just finished a lightweight hipster by Hoagie Locatelli, which is a one skein pattern, but I didn't want to do the same thing again, and I wanted to find one that would show off the beautiful yarn. It wouldn't get lost in too much patterning, and that was possibly a little bit adjustable, because obviously there's 120 grams here, so I wanted to be able to make it a bit bigger if I needed. And this pattern, the Sugar Plum Shawl pattern, fit the bill really, and it's one that I've seen that Ellie has made herself. So, being a bit sycophantic, I'm using a pattern that she's knitted, knitting her yarn to do her knit along. So I've blown any chance of winning anything really, because it would just look like, well, yeah, I don't need to say the word. But anyway, so that's my Craft House Magic yarn. The only hand-dyed yarn I've ever bought other than Ange Knits yarn was this mini skein set from Craft House Magic, and I adore the Craft House Magic podcast. It is the highlight of my week. I love to see what she's made. She's a very similar size and shape to me. Not quite the same shape. I'm a bit heavier. I'm a bit more pear. I'll be polite. I'll say I'm a bit more pear. But yeah, we like a lot of the same style clothes and the same knitting patterns. So I really enjoy watching her podcast. And that again, I'm knitting on my pony interchangeables. So yeah, that's all I have to show you today. If you are indeed looking, you may not be. So thank you for joining me, if indeed you did join me. If you enjoyed it, like, subscribe even. There may be more, who knows. I'm sure you'd like to see how the socks come out and whether I actually finish any of my other projects, or whether they end up getting frogged and recycled. You can find me on Ravelry as Mousewitch, or one word, Mousewitch. My projects are all on there, but I don't really know how to use it properly. So yeah, I just use it as kind of a notebook to store my projects. I'm also on Instagram, and on Instagram I am amandajane.davies.58. I presume there were 57 other amandajane.davies. I didn't set the account up because I'm a bit technologically challenged. But yeah, so that's where you can find me. That's where everything gets showcased and shown off. And oh, I hope to see you again. Really, I should have told you all these bags I made myself. I like a bag with a bit of a twist. As I said, I am a biker, or at least I am when I've got the strength to get on the damn thing, which I haven't at the moment. So my bags aren't necessarily pretty. This one, I don't know if you can see, it says socks on it, SOX. It was only after I did it I realised that that could be open to misinterpretation, but it was too late, it was on there. And this one, which is my least favourite, but there we go. So, sewing as well. There you go. So that's me, that's where I am, that's what I've been doing. Possibly see you again. Don't know where, don't know when. Thank you for giving me, 31 minutes of your time. I hope I've entertained you and you've enjoyed it, and I will maybe see you again. Thanks very much. Bye.